Have you ever felt like something inside you was quietly burning? A restless, invisible fire, one you couldn't name, but you knew it was there. It flickers behind your thoughts when anger rises without warning, when jealousy creeps into your heart uninvited, when fear grips your chest in the dead of night, or when sorrow settles in your bones like a heavy mist. We've all felt it, a searing, aching weight that tightens its hold when life doesn't unfold the way we hoped. And the more we struggle to ignore it, the fiercer it seems to grow. But what if, just what if that fire wasn't your enemy? What if it was a messenger, carrying a wisdom you've been too afraid to hear? In the ancient wisdom of Buddhism, these restless, painful emotions aren't mistakes or flaws. They aren't signs that you're broken or evidence that something's wrong with you. They are part of being human. The Buddha called them kleshas, mental defilements, inner poisons. Desire, anger, ignorance, pride, jealousy, fear. Each one a flame in the furnace of the restless mind, keeping us bound in suffering's endless cycle. But here's the truth the world rarely tells us. You don't have to run from them. You don't have to drown them out with distractions or numb them with noise. You don't even have to fight them. Because within those emotions lies the very key to your freedom. There's a story, one you may not have heard, about a great Buddhist master who lived centuries ago. His name was Milarepa. Born into hardship, betrayed by family, consumed by rage, he spent years practicing dark magic, driven by the desire for revenge. But revenge, like all poisons, is a fire that consumes its owner. When the ashes of his fury settled, he was left hollow, haunted, and lost. And in his desperation, Milarepa sought the guidance of a wise teacher. The teacher didn't tell him to forget his past, didn't command him to bury his anger, didn't demand he pretend to be peaceful. Instead, the master pointed to the very storm within him and said, "That is your path." Milarepa withdrew into the mountains, meditating in solitude for years, not to erase his emotions, but to understand them, to face the raw, untamed energy inside him, to listen to its language. And what he discovered changed everything. Those very emotions he once feared were fuel. When transformed, they became the wings that carried him to awakening. You see, Buddhism doesn't teach us to destroy our anger, or to silence our grief, or to shame our desires. It invites us to turn toward them, to meet them like old friends we've avoided for too long, to trace them back to their roots and see, with eyes wide open, what lies beneath. And what lies beneath is rarely what we imagined. Anger often masks a wound. Fear often hides our tenderness. Jealousy points to a longing we've neglected. Grief reveals the depth of our love. Every emotion, no matter how dark, carries wisdom if we're willing to listen. But most of us, understandably, have spent our lives doing the opposite. We've learned to fear our emotions, to bottle them up, to push them aside, to pretend we're fine when we're crumbling inside, to stay busy, stay distracted, stay numb. Modern life makes it easy to escape ourselves. Endless scrolling, constant notifications, the illusion of connection in a sea of curated smiles. But when the lights go out, when silence falls, the hidden fire is still there. And the truth is, the longer we run from it, the stronger it grows. But there's another way. A way the ancient sages and meditators quietly passed down through generations. A way to look inward without fear. To cradle even our darkest emotions with the gentleness of a mother holding her child. To dissolve the boundary between ourselves and our suffering, and in doing so, discover a peace that no circumstance can shatter. Because emotions, the Buddha taught, are like waves. They rise, they peak, they fall away. What makes them dangerous isn't their presence. It's our attachment, our resistance, our mistaken belief that they define us. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your sorrow. You are the sky in which these emotions briefly appear, the open, boundless space that holds them all. And in that spaciousness, healing begins. Imagine for a moment a life where you no longer dread your emotions, where the rise of anger is met not with guilt or denial, but with curiosity, where sadness arrives, and instead of drowning in it, you hold it gently in the palm of your awareness. Not to fix it, not to rush it away, but to be with it, to let it teach you what it came to reveal. Because beneath every uncomfortable feeling, there's a message. And when you learn to read them, your entire relationship with yourself changes. You no longer fear the fire inside you. You learn to tend it, to harness its warmth, to see in its glow the parts of you waiting to be known. This is the art of transforming negative emotions. Not denying them, not indulging them, but alchemizing them into wisdom, into compassion, into strength. And it's not a path reserved for monks in distant monasteries. It belongs to you, to the everyday, imperfect, beautifully complicated human life you live. The way in is through awareness, through presence, through the courage to meet yourself exactly where you are. And that's where our journey begins. In the teachings that follow, we'll explore the origins of these powerful emotions. We'll uncover their hidden nature. And most importantly, we'll learn how to embrace them, transform them, and use them as stepping stones on the path to unshakable inner peace. So take a deep breath. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Notice the subtle play of sensations, the gentle hum of being alive. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And the fire within you is not your enemy, it's your invitation. When you really pause, when you strip away the noise of the world and sit quietly with yourself, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice that your emotions aren't random. They have patterns, they have triggers, they have roots. And like an ancient tree whose branches twist toward the sky, their roots sink deep into the soil of your experiences, your memories, your beliefs, and the stories you've silently told yourself for years. But here's what most of us miss. We see only the surface. We see the anger when it explodes, the jealousy when it stings, the fear when it grips us tight. We rarely ask why. What is anger but a signal? What is fear but a voice? What is jealousy but a mirror reflecting something hidden within? If you look closely, you'll see these emotions don't arise from nowhere. They have causes, conditions, and history. And the Buddha was precise in pointing this out. In the ancient teachings, the Buddha explained that all emotions, both wholesome and unwholesome, arise dependent on causes and conditions. Nothing appears independently. Your anger didn't materialize in thin air. It's the product of unmet expectations, perhaps a buried wound or a fear of losing control. Jealousy is often born from comparison, from the illusion of separation, from the aching belief that what another has is what you lack. And fear is the voice of clinging, a desperate wish to hold onto something fleeting or a resistance to what might come. Each emotion is a branch, but if you trace it down far enough, you'll find its root. And nearly always, those roots lie in attachment and ignorance. Attachment is our tendency to cling. We cling to ideas of how things should be, to people we love, to identities we've built, to circumstances we can't control. And when reality refuses to obey our desires, suffering arises. It's like grasping at water. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. And in that moment of loss, frustration is born. Anger appears. Fear follows close behind. And then there's ignorance, not the ignorance of intelligence, but the ignorance of forgetting our true nature. We forget that life is impermanent, that everything we grasp is in constant motion, that the self we defend so fiercely is not a fixed thing, but a process, a river, not a stone. When we forget these truths, we suffer. And that suffering manifests as the very emotions we try so hard to escape. But if you can begin to see these emotions not as enemies, but as messengers, everything changes. Consider this. When anger rises, it's pointing to something. It might be highlighting an injustice you haven't named. Or perhaps it's protecting a tender place within you, a wound from long ago, left unattended. Jealousy reveals where you've lost connection with your own worth. It shows you the places where you've mistaken someone else's path as being better than your own. And fear is a guide. It marks the edge of your comfort, the place where growth waits. It shows you where you still believe in the illusion of control. These emotions, as fierce as they feel, aren't here to punish you. They're here to wake you up. The Buddha compared the mind to a garden. If left unattended, weeds of craving, aversion, and delusion take root. But with mindfulness as your tool, you can trace each weed back to its seed. You begin to ask, where did this come from? What thought, what belief, what memory planted this inside me? And when you trace it back, often you'll find that so many of our emotional habits aren't even truly ours. They were passed down, taught to us, modeled by others, shaped by culture, trauma, upbringing, and unspoken rules. How many times have you reacted not from your true nature, but from a habit, a phrase someone spoke to you as a child, a story you heard about who you're supposed to be, a fear inherited from generations before you? When you begin to see this, something miraculous happens. You stop blaming yourself for your emotions. You stop labeling them as bad. And you start to feel compassion not just for yourself, but for every person who's ever struggled under the same weight. Because suffering is universal. The anger you feel, countless others have felt. The sorrow that visits you in the dark, others too have known. And when you understand the roots of your own emotions, you open a doorway to understanding the hearts of others. This is why the Buddhist path begins with awareness. Not to control life, but to witness it. Mindfulness isn't just about breathing or sitting still. It's about becoming radically honest with yourself, noticing the tightness in your chest when someone hurts you, the heat in your belly when you're slighted, the ache in your heart when you feel unseen. And instead of reacting blindly, you pause, you breathe, and you ask, what is this teaching me? Because emotions aren't mistakes, they're teachers in disguise. A Zen master once said, "The obstacle is the path." And nowhere is that truer than in the fire of our own emotions. When you trace them to their root, to attachment, to clinging, to illusion, you begin to loosen the knot. Not by force, not by denial, but through wisdom. And over time, you start to see emotions as passing clouds. They come, they go. And you remain steady, vast, and clear like the open sky, the most beautiful part. The same root causes that create your suffering hold the key to your awakening. Where there's attachment, you can cultivate letting go. Where there's ignorance, you can foster understanding. Where there's clinging, you can practice release. Every difficult emotion is a doorway, and once you know where to look, once you're willing to follow the trail of your own inner landscape, freedom isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Now, as we continue our journey, we'll begin to explore not just the roots of these emotions, but how to skillfully transform them. How to turn anger into clarity, fear into courage, jealousy into inspiration. Not by suppressing them, but by understanding their language. And when you learn to speak the language of your own heart, the world itself begins to change. There's a moment, a fragile, fleeting instant, right before an emotion takes hold. A pause between stimulus and response. Most of us miss it. We feel a surge of anger and lash out, a wave of fear and shrink away, a spark of jealousy and withdraw into bitterness. We're so accustomed to obeying our emotions, to being driven by them, that we forget. There's a choice, a sacred space where you can turn toward your emotions instead of running from them. And that's where the real transformation begins. You see, the problem isn't that we feel anger or fear or sadness. The problem is that we're afraid of feeling them. We resist, we deny, we numb. We distract ourselves with noise, scrolling through endless feeds, binge-watching distractions, drowning ourselves in busy schedules and empty conversations. But emotions you avoid don't disappear. They wait. They linger in the body, in the chest, the gut, the throat. And over time, what you refuse to face grows heavier, darker, more entangled. The Buddha spoke of this too. He compared our relationship to difficult emotions to a man struck by an arrow. The pain of the arrow is real, but what causes suffering is when we shoot a second arrow, our resistance, our fear, our aversion to the pain itself. And it's that second arrow that deepens the wound. What if, instead of pulling away, instead of layering fear upon fear, you turn toward the emotion itself, not as an enemy, not as something broken to be fixed, but as a messenger, a voice calling from within. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When you stop running, emotions lose their power to control you. Fear faced dissolves into space. Anger acknowledged softens into sadness, then compassion. Jealousy, when seen clearly, reveals itself as longing for connection. It's only when we avoid them that they grow monstrous. Think of a child crying in the dark. The longer you ignore them, the louder they wail. But when you sit beside them, when you listen, their cries soften. They just wanted to be seen. Your emotions are no different. Facing emotions without fear doesn't mean indulging them. It doesn't mean letting rage consume you or wallowing in despair. It means witnessing them, naming them, holding space for them. Mindfulness teaches us to observe without clinging and without pushing away. To notice the heat of anger in the body, the tightness of fear in the chest, the weight of sorrow behind the eyes. To say to ourselves, anger is here, fear is present, sadness has arrived. Not I am angry, but anger is arising. Do you feel the difference? One identity clings, the other allows space. The more you practice this, the more you realize emotions are like weather. Storms come, winds howl, the sky darkens, but no storm lasts forever. And above the clouds, the sky is always clear. One of the most beautiful teachings in Buddhist philosophy is the idea of the empty nature of emotions. They feel solid. They feel overwhelming. But if you truly turn toward them, you'll notice something strange. They shift. What begins as pure rage melts into grief. Grief reveals fear, and fear at its core is the longing to be safe, to be loved. You realize that beneath every difficult emotion is a tender heart, calling out for understanding. And when you bring mindfulness to this, when you sit with your emotions without judgment, like an old friend keeping company with sorrow, the edges soften. Your body begins to breathe again. The storm passes, and in its wake, clarity remains. Of course, it isn't always easy. Some emotions are so fierce, so sharp, that even turning toward them feels unbearable. That's where compassion enters. Not just compassion for others, but for yourself. This, too, is something many forget. We extend kindness outward but leave ourselves abandoned. The Buddha taught metta, loving kindness, as an antidote to fear and aversion. Not as a sentimental idea, but as a radical practice. When you feel overwhelmed by anger, place a hand on your heart. Breathe, and silently offer yourself the words, "May I be safe. May I be kind to myself. May I learn to understand this moment." It sounds simple, even trivial, but spoken from the heart, it's medicine. It's a reminder that you are not your anger, not your fear, not your sorrow. You are the vast awareness holding these emotions. And that awareness is untouched by their coming and going. The path to freedom isn't paved by avoiding difficulty. It's built by walking directly into the heart of it. When you learn to face emotions without fear, you reclaim your power. You stop being a puppet pulled by invisible strings. You become the calm eye within the storm. And here's the paradox. The very emotions you feared most become your greatest teachers. Anger sharpens your sense of injustice and boundary. Fear reveals your attachments and illusions of control. Grief opens the door to compassion and tenderness. Every single one of them, when faced, becomes a tool for awakening. A Zen saying reminds us, the obstacle is the path. And now you see why. The obstacles are not hindrances. They're invitations. Invitations to turn inward, to meet yourself with honesty, to understand the depths of your own heart. And when you do, when you stop resisting and start listening, you find a strength you didn't know you carried, a resilience rooted not in denial, but in presence. As we continue, we'll move beyond the act of facing emotions into the art of transforming them. Because it's one thing to see the storm, to sit in it. It's another to learn how to channel its power, to turn anger into clarity, fear into wisdom, jealousy into inspiration. This is where the true alchemy happens. And you, my friend, are capable of it. The ancient masters knew this, and now so will you. Some storms you can't outrun. Some waves refuse to be tamed. And yet, within every tempest, there's a current you can ride. Emotions are no different. Once we've learned to face them without flinching, something remarkable happens. We realize they are energy, pure, raw, and unclaimed. And energy, by its very nature, can be transformed. This is the heart of ancient wisdom traditions, not the suppression of difficult emotions, nor their indulgence, but their alchemy. The old masters didn't fear anger, they transformed it. They didn't escape grief, they let it deepen their compassion. They didn't deny fear, they turned it into unshakable clarity. But how? What separates those who drown in emotions from those who use them as tools for awakening? The answer lies in method, and these methods aren't distant, abstract ideas. They are ancient practices, refined across centuries, simple, direct, profoundly human. The first method is mindful observation. It sounds simple, almost too simple for the storms of the heart. But simplicity is deceptive. To observe your anger without merging with it. To watch fear arise like a cloud and notice it pass. To witness jealousy tighten in your chest, then soften. This is no passive act. It's a courageous presence. You become the silent watcher, aware, grounded, unshaken. Buddha called this vipassana, clear seeing, not labeling the emotion as good or bad, but seeing it as it is. Anger is energy. Fear is a wave. Grief is a contraction. When you see clearly, you disarm the emotion's power to possess you. The second method is loving kindness cultivation. When emotions feel unbearable, our instinct is to contract, to shut down, to build walls around our heart. But walls don't protect, they imprison. The practice of metta, or loving kindness, is radical because it refuses to armor the heart. When anger surges, instead of hardening, you soften. You send kindness inward. You imagine offering warmth to yourself. May I be at peace. May this anger teach me. Then, and this is the transformative part, you extend it outward, to the one who triggered your pain. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. May you find understanding. May you be free from the suffering that caused you to hurt me. This isn't weakness, it's the fiercest strength. Because only those who have made peace with their own shadows can afford to be kind to the darkness in others. The third method is breath awareness. Never underestimate breath. It's the bridge between mind and body, the anchor in turbulent seas. When emotions overwhelm, the breath shortens, tightens. We lose connection to the present, swept into the storm. But if you pause and return to the breath, not forcing it, just watching it, you reclaim your center, in through the nose, out through the mouth, slowly, deliberately, each breath a thread pulling you back from the edge. Zen masters say, control the breath and you control the mind. In truth, it's not about control, it's about intimacy. About returning home to yourself when emotions threaten to scatter you. The fourth method is inquiry. Not every emotion should be taken at face value. Anger isn't always about the person who triggered it. Fear isn't always about the situation at hand. Buddhism teaches us to gently question the roots of what arises. Ask, what is beneath this anger? What am I truly afraid of? What does this sorrow long to show me? Often what surfaces isn't what you expected. Beneath anger, you find hurt. Beneath fear, you find attachment. Beneath grief, you find love. And once you see the root, transformation begins naturally. You're no longer battling surface symptoms. You're tending to the roots. The fifth method is visualization. The mind is powerful. It clings to images, symbols, metaphors. Ancient practitioners knew this well. When emotions feel stuck, imagine them as a storm cloud, a fire, a knot of vines. Then visualize releasing them. See anger as smoke dissolving into the sky, fear as ice melting under the sun, sadness as a bird flying from its cage. This isn't childish fantasy, it's how the subconscious processes change. The mind believes what it pictures, and pictures have the power to reshape the heart. The sixth method is embodied practice. We tend to experience emotions in the mind, but they live in the body. Anger clenches fists, fear tightens the stomach, sadness rounds the shoulders, and so transformation must be physical too. Movement practices like walking meditation, mindful stretching, or even simply placing a hand on your heart ground you in the body. When emotions flood the system, move. Not to escape, but to allow the energy to flow. Buddhism has long taught that stagnation breeds suffering, and movement frees it. The final method is gratitude recollection. This is the most understated, yet among the most powerful tools. When consumed by difficult emotions, the world narrows. Our gaze fixates on what's wrong, on what's missing. But gratitude expands. It widens the lens. The simple act of recalling 3 things, however small, you're grateful for in this very moment can soften even the sharpest edge of sorrow. The warmth of this room, the breath still rising in my lungs, the chance to begin again. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. It reminds you there's more to the story. It balances the darkness with light. Each of these methods, mindful observation, loving kindness, breath awareness, inquiry, visualization, embodied movement, and gratitude, is a thread. Individually delicate, together unbreakable. They weave a net strong enough to hold the weight of your sorrow, your anger, your grief, without letting you drown. And perhaps most beautiful of all, these are skills. Not gifts reserved for saints, but capacities every human heart can cultivate. The fire of difficult emotion no longer needs to burn you. It can illuminate you. And as you learn these methods, something curious happens. You no longer fear emotions. You welcome them. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you've learned to harvest wisdom from the storm. The path to peace is not the absence of pain, but the ability to transform it. And as you master this art, you'll discover that what once felt unbearable becomes your deepest strength. Soon, we'll explore how these practices don't merely ease suffering, but awaken profound wisdom. Because the ultimate purpose of transforming emotion isn't just comfort, it's clarity, it's awakening. And what lies ahead might just change everything. What if the very emotions we spend our lives avoiding are the gateways to the deepest wisdom we'll ever know? What if our anger, our grief, our fear, instead of obstacles, are invitations? Not punishments, but pathways. This is the secret the ancient masters understood, and what modern hearts in our restless world have forgotten. You see, emotions are not problems to fix. They're teachers, messengers, opportunities. And if we meet them skillfully with open eyes and steady hearts, something astonishing happens. They transform. The Buddhist path doesn't promise a life free from anger, fear, or sadness. It promises the ability to transform those states into something higher. Anger becomes courage, grief becomes compassion, fear becomes clarity, not through denial, not through indulgence, but through deep, honest alchemy. Let's begin with anger. Most of us feel ashamed of anger, or we lash out with it, burning bridges we'll later mourn. But anger is, at its core, a response to perceived injustice, a sign that something we care about feels threatened. The wisdom lies not in suppressing it, nor in unleashing it blindly, but in listening to its message. Ask yourself, what am I protecting? What do I love so fiercely that its harm stirs this fire? In that question, anger softens. It reveals care beneath its flames. Then you redirect that energy into speaking truth without harm, into protecting without hatred, into building what was missing instead of destroying what hurt you. Anger transformed is fierce compassion. It's the strength to shield the vulnerable, to stand for what matters without bitterness. Now consider grief. Grief arrives like a wave in the night. It takes the breath, folds the heart, and leaves us hollow. But beneath grief's sorrow is love. We grieve because we loved. We mourn because something precious was real. And when we sit with grief without numbing, without fleeing, it ripens. It turns brittle hearts into tender ones. It deepens empathy. Suddenly, the sorrow of others is no longer abstract. You feel their ache as your own. And this is compassion's birth. Buddha taught that compassion isn't pity. It's the direct, visceral recognition of shared suffering. When you've walked through your own grief, you never look at a grieving soul the same way again. You soften, you reach out. Grief, when honored, becomes a bridge between hearts. Then there's fear. We spend lifetimes running from it, building safe walls, hiding behind certainty. But fear is a mirror. It reflects our attachments. We fear loss because we cling. We fear uncertainty because we crave control. We fear death because we misunderstand life. When fear arises, don't numb it, don't deny it. Sit beside it, hold it like a trembling child, and ask, what am I holding too tightly? What illusion am I defending? Beneath every fear is a mistaken belief, a story we've told ourselves about what must be for us to be whole. As fear unravels, clarity arises. We see life's impermanence not as a threat, but as its beauty. The lotus blooms because it knows it won't last forever. Fear transformed is wisdom. It teaches us what truly matters. This is the path of emotional alchemy, not turning away from pain, but walking through it until it reveals its other face. In Buddhism, this is known as the two wings of awakening, compassion and wisdom. Every emotion, if met with mindfulness and courage, strengthens one or both. Anger and grief deepen compassion. Fear and sorrow sharpen wisdom. Compassion isn't weakness, it's fierce, steady presence. Wisdom isn't cold detachment, it's clear, uncluttered seeing. And together, they allow us to meet the world not as victims of emotion, but as alchemists of it. So how do we practice this transformation in daily life? It begins with pausing. When emotion surges, don't react. Place a gentle hand on your heart. Take a single breath. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Where is the wisdom hidden inside this ache? Then listen. Sometimes the answer won't come in words. It will come as a loosening in the chest, a sudden clarity in the mind, a tear you didn't know you were holding back. Over time, you'll recognize the pattern. Every anger carries a lesson about boundaries or values. Every grief carries a reminder of love's depth. Every fear points to a place within you still waiting for liberation. And when you meet emotions this way, they stop owning you. They become tools, teachers, gifts. The ancient masters say, your greatest wounds will become your greatest wisdom, not because suffering is noble, but because when we refuse to waste our pain, it transforms us. Like coal under pressure becomes diamond. Like fire tempers steel. The most compassionate hearts often belong to those who have known great sorrow. The clearest wisdom often arises from those who have faced their deepest fears. And so the next time emotion arrives uninvited, welcome it. Not as an enemy, not as a curse, but as a teacher you hadn't expected. Say to it, what lesson do you bring? What truth have I been avoiding? And listen. Because in the end, your emotions aren't obstacles on your path. They are the path, the raw material from which compassion and wisdom are forged. And when you master this alchemy, life no longer happens to you. You shape it. You meet each storm with grace, each sorrow with kindness, each fear with clarity, and in doing so you awaken, not by escaping this human heart, but by learning to transform it. It happens quietly in the simple, often overlooked choices we make each day. The way we wake, the way we breathe, the way we greet discomfort. The alchemy of emotion is not a mystical event reserved for monks in ancient temples. It's a living, breathing practice meant for people like you and me, right here in the chaos and tenderness of ordinary life. And it begins with small, deliberate acts. Each morning before the world takes hold of you, take a single breath, not the rushed inhale of a racing mind. A conscious breath. Let it fill your lungs. Feel it expand your chest. And on the exhale, release the tightness you didn't know you were holding. This is your first act of reclaiming your own mind. Because how you start your day is how you build your mind. Morning reflection. Before touching your phone, before lists and demands, ask yourself, what do I wish to cultivate today? Is it patience? Is it courage? Is it understanding when irritation knocks at your door? Choose one, not a dozen. One. And let that be your thread through the hours to come. This is called setting an intention, a mental anchor that steadies you when emotion surges unexpectedly. Then, in the moments of daily friction, the traffic jam, the spilled coffee, the sharp words from a stranger, practice mindful pauses. Instead of reacting from habit, gently pause. Feel the emotion as it rises in your body. Is it tightness in your throat, heat in your chest, a restless swirl in your gut? Name it softly. This is irritation. This is sadness. This is fear. The naming itself creates space. In that space, you gain the freedom to choose your response. This is the practice of not being enslaved by your emotions, but becoming their witness. And what about the deeper waves? Those emotions that don't pass in a moment, but linger for days or weeks. For these, the ancient masters offer a practice called sitting with the fire. It means creating quiet space, even 5 minutes to sit without distraction with what you're feeling. No fixing, no numbing, no escape. Simply breathe and let the emotion show itself fully. If it's grief, let it wash over you. If it's anger, feel its heat without acting on it. If it's fear, let it tremble within you. This isn't passivity, it's courage. The kind of courage few people practice. And in those quiet moments, you'll notice something. Emotions, when fully allowed, begin to shift, like a storm cloud dispersing under sunlight. You realize you are the sky, not the storm. Another daily tool, compassionate self-talk. We're often our own harshest critic. But a mind steeped in blame cannot transform emotion, it only compounds it. So when you stumble, when you snap in anger or drown in sorrow, practice saying to yourself, "It's okay. This too is part of being human. I'm learning." Speak to yourself the way you would to a dear friend. Because transformation doesn't require perfection, only sincerity. Then, there's the practice of gratitude reframing. Every evening before sleep, reflect on 3 moments from your day where a difficult emotion arose and how it taught you something, however small. Maybe impatience revealed where you were overextending yourself. Maybe sadness reminded you of what you value most. Maybe frustration showed you a boundary that needs honoring. By reframing challenges as teachers, you rewire your mind to welcome, rather than resist, emotional experiences. This isn't toxic positivity. It's wisdom, the wisdom of a heart that knows even storms nourish the earth. And finally, embrace movement as medicine. Emotions aren't just thoughts, they live in the body. A walk in nature, 10 minutes of mindful stretching, or simply placing a hand on your chest and breathing deeply. These acts dissolve emotional tension trapped in the flesh. The body holds what the mind cannot process. By moving, you release. By breathing, you soften. By resting, you reset. Day by day, these small practices accumulate. A breath here, a pause there, a gentle word. A grateful glance at a sunset you once ignored. And over time, without force, without striving, you change. Not by becoming someone else, but by finally meeting yourself. The angry parts, the fearful parts, the tender, hurting, hopeful parts. And in meeting them, you reclaim your own heart. This is the true art of emotional transformation, not a dramatic overnight shift, but the steady, humble work of showing up one breath, one choice, one honest moment at a time. And as you do, you begin to notice the world differently. The rude driver becomes a suffering person. The irritating coworker, a reflection of your own impatience. Your own sorrow, a bridge to others' pain. And life becomes less about managing emotions and more about alchemizing them, turning anger into clarity, turning grief into tenderness, turning fear into freedom. The old Buddhist teaching says, "Little by little a pot fills with water." Your daily practice is this: a drop of courage, a drop of awareness, a drop of compassion, and in time the pot overflows, your mind settles, your heart steadies, and you no longer fear your emotions because you've befriended them. And so, as we near the end of this journey, there's one more truth to uncover. Because beyond techniques and practices, there's a deeper realization waiting. One that will change not just how you feel, but who you believe you are. And that, my friend, is where we're going next. And so here we are, at the end of this path, or perhaps the beginning of another. Because as you've seen, the real journey was never about escaping emotions, but about walking hand in hand with them, learning their language, understanding their origin, and ultimately transforming them into wisdom. You see, the heart isn't meant to be a battlefield. It's meant to be a sanctuary, a place where sorrow can enter and be heard, where anger can reveal its hidden wounds, where fear can lay down its armor. And when we allow this, truly allow it, something extraordinary happens. We no longer run from ourselves. We no longer fear the rising wave of grief, the sharp sting of jealousy, or the ache of loneliness. Because we've discovered what ancient sages have whispered for centuries, that within every difficult emotion lies a door, a threshold, an invitation to know ourselves more honestly, to connect more deeply, to live more freely. And in that knowing comes liberation. Liberation isn't a distant mountain peak reserved for monks or mystics. It's here, in the ordinary, in the small moments when you choose presence over reaction, compassion over judgment, curiosity over fear, when you pause before raising your voice, when you hold space for your own sorrow, when you offer kindness to someone's invisible struggle. These are acts of awakening, not dramatic, not perfect, but real. And they matter, because this is how the world changes, not through grand declarations, but through thousands of unseen, silent acts of courage. There's an old Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The world outside doesn't necessarily shift, but your relationship to it does. And suddenly, every emotion becomes a teacher, every difficulty a mirror, every moment a doorway. And you, no longer prisoner to your moods, become the quiet master of your inner world, a person of peace, not because life grew easier, but because you grew wiser. And in that wisdom, you offer something this noisy, frantic world desperately needs. A calm presence, a steady light, a heart that doesn't turn away. So as we bring this journey to a close, I invite you, wherever you are sitting in your car, lying in bed, walking through your day, to take a single conscious breath, in and out, and silently offer yourself this promise. I will meet my emotions with kindness. I will meet others with understanding. I will meet this life in all its mystery with open hands. This is the practice, and it is enough. And if this journey touched something in you, if it stirred a new way of seeing, of feeling, of being, then stay close, because there are many more paths we'll walk together, many ancient teachings to unravel, many quiet truths to rediscover in this fast, restless world. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, not just for content, but to become part of a growing circle of seekers, healers, and wanderers, just like you. Click like if this spoke to your heart. Share it with someone whose soul might need this light. And let's build a space where wisdom is spoken softly and hearts feel a little less alone. Because no one walks this path alone. We rise, we stumble, we learn together. Until our next meeting, may you be well, may you be peaceful, may you be free.